Jurgen Klopp's time at Liverpool has come to an end, but how will he be remembered? Will he be remembered as one of the all-time greats, or does he rank a little bit lower than that? That's what we're going to discuss right now. And we're going to kick off with this question. Does Pep winning a fourth title in a row take away from Klopp's legacy? Kim?
I think it depends on how you define legacy. I think because it's been an interesting battle between Klopp and Pep, and it's created a very, very interesting narrative of who's the better manager. Is it Pep versus Klopp? Well, Pep's won more, but maybe Klopp's developed younger players. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think that there should be a debate. I think Pep is head and shoulders above Klopp. I think what Klopp's done at Liverpool is incredible. I think the legacy that he has at Liverpool is amazing, and I think he will probably go down as their best ever manager, from what he took them from to what he took them to, winning the Champions League, regularly competing in the Premier League. It can't be diminished in any way, shape or form. But I think really when you look at just the Premier League and just the Premier League era here, you've had a villain in Pep Guardiola and Manchester City, and you've had the hero in Jurgen Klopp, and that's the narrative and that's the way that it's been. But the thing is, Klopp has won one Premier League in 9, and Pep's on course to win his 6th. I feel like the debate has been forced a little bit, and I feel like Pep just winning more and more trophies does make you look back on the Jurgen Klopp era and think, okay, he hasn't been very successful in the Premier League. Yes, he's played heavy metal football that everyone loves, but what exactly is it that would make him a Premier League great when he's come up against a foe that he can't get the better of?
I think the difficulty here is that I remember, I would say probably about 2 years ago maybe, I think it was when Liverpool were going for the quadruple at one point. I remember having a conversation going, oh, it's done, isn't it? Like, Klopp, especially for Klopp, what Klopp's done with the amount that he's spent and the players that he's had and how he's developed, he's getting Robertson from Hull and different players from different places. This debate of sort of being great or being the better manager, I remember at that time the conversation was quite calmly, actually Klopp is better than Guardiola, but it was going into that run-in and they didn't win that title that year. So that murky ground of, despite winning it all, not getting over the line at times, does that take away from him as a manager?
I don't think it should, because I think part of a manager's legacy is how he makes the supporters feel as well. And I would argue that Klopp has a better relationship with the Liverpool fans than Pep Guardiola has with the Manchester City fans. Now, I know you might disagree with that, but looking at it from the outside in, I can see a connection there. I can see someone that's really connected with a football club. And that's not to take away from Pep, but it's highlighting some of the good things that Klopp has done and managed that maybe don't always get the coverage that they deserve. I think if you look at where Klopp picked up Liverpool from in comparison to where Pep Guardiola picked up Manchester City from, it's completely understandable that he didn't win a title for a few years, because there was so much more work to be done. There was so much more that needed to happen. I think that Pep Guardiola has been better resourced at Manchester City. Again, that's something that works against Jurgen Klopp. He's working under an ownership group that have at times been criticised by Liverpool fans for not wanting to go that extra mile in terms of finances. They were smart in the way they did things, and that obviously levelled the playing field for a while. But I don't think the number of Premier Leagues that he's won should take him out of the conversation for the Premier League's best managers. But I accept that he can't be the number one with that number of titles.
What I will say is, like, okay, the point about Jurgen Klopp's relationship with the Liverpool fans is fine, and I agree with that, and that makes him a Liverpool great, or it makes him a Liverpool legend. It doesn't make him a Premier League great, and it doesn't make him a Premier League legend. And I think the Jurgen Klopp thing is that I think a lot of people have really fallen in love with him as a person, what he's done with Liverpool and the football that he's played. And I think the narrative shifted a little bit into becoming untruth. I mean, he's bought the most expensive goalkeeper at the time. He's bought the most expensive defender at the time. People talk about net spend being a huge factor, but Jurgen Klopp didn't decide that Barcelona were going to spend £150 million on a faded Coutinho. And those things make the stats and the net spend look a little bit better. But it's not like he hasn't spent, and it's not like he hasn't been backed. Of course, not to the same level of Guardiola, but I personally think that if Klopp was as good as maybe people are purporting him to be, putting him in the conversation with Guardiola and Alex Ferguson and people like that, then he would have won more than one in 9 years.
I think it's an incredibly fine line. You know, in the sense of, again, we've just done a video talking about Arteta. If this Man City side, which is not old, is it? I think you got De Bruyne, you got to get past, but you got Foden sort of starting to shine now. The rest of that squad is still very young and has got a long time. There's every possibility that someone like Arteta could have exactly the same record as Klopp.
Yeah.
When they get to the same sort of distance, and having spent, a solid amount of money as well. I'm not really bothered about the money too much. I think in this conversation that we're having, I think as a broad Premier League great, in terms of personalities, I think Jurgen Klopp will be one of the first names that come off your tongue.
But is that what it should be rated on? Should it be rated on personality?
No, I don't. I don't think if we're making a list, he's not top. I don't think he's top 3 personally. If we're talking about trophies, because I think he's been phenomenal. I get it, but I think all these things are always so murky because you've got the mix of getting the trophy. Leicester City won a trophy, won the title, but the points they got wasn't the same as Liverpool for the last however many years when they've been right at the top there. Same with Arsenal the last couple of years. Arsenal were invincibles, but they drew 12 games, so that doesn't mean anything anymore. Like it's a very difficult thing to kind of go through. I think all you can go with is your opinion on how you see that kind of greatness, and I think there's been so much conversation about this. I think it is only right that Pep and Ferguson are quite clearly above Klopp for the amount that they won. Because at the end of the day, that does matter. I think you can then have a conversation. You've got him, Mourinho, and Wenger then for me, and I think that I find that really difficult to kind of go through it all, because in terms of sort of those titles, obviously Mourinho's got those titles. In terms of sort of a purity and a revolution of football, I think Wenger wins that argument. But I think for an overall brilliance, I would kind of lean towards Klopp. So it makes it really, really difficult. In terms of the Klopp-Mourinho thing, in terms of Prem stats, so Klopp's stats are 333 matches, 208 wins, 78 draws, 47 losses, 712 goals scored, 333 against. Mourinho, 363 matches, only a few more, 217 wins, 84 draws, 62 losses, 625 goals for 305 against. So nearly, in less games, nearly 100 more goals. So I think in terms of all the little aspects around the trophy, I think Klopp is a Premier League great. But I think these lists come down to that. Yeah. And therefore he's not. And that's how I feel.
I agree. I think in terms of the intangibles and the feeling that Klopp has given the Premier League,
the Dortmund night, the Barcelona night,
and what he's given Liverpool fans, of course they're going to think he's a great. And let's be honest, like the rivalry, if you want to call it that, although I'm pretty sure it's very respectful between the two men in Guardiola and Klopp, has been incredibly entertaining viewing for the last 5 or 6 years. It's been absolutely fantastic. And I think any Premier League fan, if you took off your supporters hat of the club you supported, you would look at that and you'd think Klopp has made the Premier League a much richer place. He certainly has, and he will be missed. But I can't call him a Premier League great when I think he's had a good enough amount of resources and a good enough amount of time and the support of the Liverpool fans to do more than one Premier League in 9 years.
So stop, you can't call him a Premier League great, or you can't put him in. Or you can't make him the greatest.
I can't. I don't think I can put him.
I wouldn't put him in the greatest.
I don't think I can put him
great though.
I don't think I can put him in the top 4. I think he comes 5th for me. I mean, he finished 8th, 4th, 4th, 2nd. Then they won the league, 3rd, 2nd, 5th, and then 3rd again. That's not greatness.
Doesn't sound good.
That's not greatness.
It doesn't. But I think you're ignoring the fact of what he's been up against. He needed time to come in at Liverpool and fix Liverpool, because it was a broken football club that hadn't won the league for 30 years. I say broken by Liverpool's standards that they've set in history, because they've been incredibly successful. But he's come in and he's needed time to get them to that point. The difference between him and Arteta, for example, and when we're talking about projects, is that Klopp was winning things along the way.
Aside from Premier League, there's a lot of trophies around that, isn't there?
There's trophies. There's a Champions League, which is obviously massive, right? So he's managed all of that. Then he's come up against arguably the best side the Premier League has ever seen in Manchester City. And so just because he hasn't been able to topple them more than once doesn't mean that he wasn't on the level of some of the other managers that were successful because the competition at the time wasn't as great.
And when you have those rivalries, you have the winner and you have the loser. Despite both being great and up here, you know, Wenger and Fergie, they were so clear, but Fergie won more. And so Wenger comes here. So then when you mix that up with other rivalries, then he starts to drop down a little bit. But I personally believe he is a Premier League great. And I just think when it comes to that overall list, which is so elite, yeah, I think he's struggling when it comes to that, because that's what you come back to, is the trophies and the winning, especially when it is exclusively to the Premier League. But what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments down below.